Hello and welcome to an amazing podcast. This is D and Modi, and we are talking about God of High School, Episode 5. So, what did you think?
I thought this fight was really hype.
Yeah.
I've been subconsciously waiting for this fight since episode 1, so it was great.
Mm-hmm. Like always, I have mixed feelings, but most of those mixed feelings come from very nitpicky places. So the first issue I have is they kind of fridged Mira. I would have preferred it so much more if they had dedicated an actual episode to that fight. To sort of build up how he's no longer playing around. Because sure, that previous episode, the high point of the previous episode would have been negated. But I think it would have given Mira a better send-off. Because, right now it's just, one punch, you're gone. That's it. End of your story.
That's true.
The other thing... So, first of all, fight. Absolutely amazing. As usual, awesome fight choreography, awesome animation, awesome visuals. And this is probably going to be the last time I say this, but I do think the supernatural elements hurt it a little bit more again. And I swear to God, this is the last time I'll bring this up until it gets really, really bad, or I feel like I really need to, or if I need to say something different about it. But when I was going into this fight, I did not like the whole him eating the magic gum fruit or whatever. Because when I was going into it, I was thinking, okay, Jin just drop-kicked someone so hard that he shattered the arena. On top of that, he has magical fruit powers coursing through him.
Wait. What are you talking about? What fruit?
You know when he ate that peach, and it was all oh yes, we'll see what bears fruit and blah 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 blah.
Wait, are you talking about a few episodes ago?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, does that stick though? I didn't assume that stuck. I thought that was just a one-time temporary power boost, if even it was. I completely forgot about that actually.
I am under the impression that is going to stick, and it did stick for me too, because it feels like it's foreshadowing something, and it has it has that anime trope where it's if you eat something and it doesn't kill you, you're going to get a power boost, or it's a prelude to something super awesome or over the top, kind of like how the stand arrows are in JoJo's. If you get hit by the arrow and you die, you're a regular human, but if you get hit by the arrow and you survive, you get a stand.
Yeah.
So when I was going into this, I was okay, Jin's the main character. He's using Taekwondo, which is the best martial arts, and he has magical fruit juices flowing through him. He's going to win this.
I don't know about the... You know what? You're probably right about that, because it seems like a pretty common trope, I guess. But I just don't feel like I have enough evidence to assume that he's still under the influence of the fruit. I didn't even assume that the fruit helped him, but it probably did. But
I'm not saying it did, but from my point of that, I'm saying from my point of view, me doing my mental power, meta writing, power scaling, I felt that Jin had more of an advantage in this fight from a narrative standpoint. And the one thing, and there's that, and it's the pre-ending moment and the ending moment that kind of get to me. So with this episode, we basically get background information on days past with his friend, how he's dealing with a terminal illness and all that kind of stuff. And we also learn that the reason he's participating in this tournament was to basically get treatment for his friend. I really didn't like the whole moment where he gets a knockout on Jin, and the fight coordinator or whatever tells him that his friend died from that. I thought that was a huge writing misstep. I think it would have been way better if you have your Jin, I'm never going to give up on my friend. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to give it all that I have. And then you have Day getting forced more into a corner, more desperate, more desperate. You keep elevating tension until, boom, the fight's over. Day wins. He goes over to check on his friend, finds out that he died during the fight. You have, like, the coordinator there saying, like, yeah, your friend died. The contract's null and void. Do what the hell you want. And then you have Day sitting there alone, no friends, no reason to fight, at his absolute lowest. And then all of a sudden you have Jin and Mira come in, console him. It's like, and then you can have like Day be, why are you here? And then Jin's like, because we're your friends, dumbass. And then he seeks consolence with them. And then we have an end credit scene where Day drops out of the tournament because he has no other reason to fight, thus allowing Jin to move up in the ranks.
Wow, that's actually perfect. I completely agree with that. I think, yeah, he should have beaten him, then found out his friend was dead, and then lost his will to fight. And yeah, especially that ending part where he drops out of the fight. Because to me, and also I feel like a lot of this stuff, it's this all feels like we're getting like little pieces of an overall story. So I don't want to be quick to judge the decision that he made, like you know, that the author made, without knowing what's going to come next. But overall, I do think if I was doing it, like, I don't know what he has planned, but I think overall you're right. Like, that's how it probably should have gone down. And I also thought it was pretty confusing that he finds out his friend dies, and then he pretty much loses his will to fight, which makes sense. That's understandable. But then where does he gets this message, you know, from Mira, from his friend who was dead, saying, fight for yourself now. And I don't know why that, like, okay, but what reason does he have to fight? Because as far as we know, the only reason he's fighting is to, you know, is to save his friend. So after that point, what reason is he still fighting for? Like, it just shows that he, like, just kind of pulls himself together and gets motivated again. But what's the reason he got motivated? We don't know.
And the other problem with it is the whole reason he did that, like the coordinator did that, was to see what he would do at his lowest.
Yeah.
But narratively speaking, he was not at his lowest.
Yeah.
He still had two friends who cared about him.
Yeah.
If you go through like the whole him beating the living daylights out of Jin and Mira, you have that whole like idea that he's alone. He just beat the crap out of the only other two friends he had. This sucks. And then all of a sudden they show up again. You don't have Mira delivering the letter. In fact, you could have her deliver the letter, but have it be at like that end scene where they would come to like console him. That way you would have him like, yeah, he was at his lowest, but
just
his friends
absolutely just push him to the brink completely.
Yeah,
that would have been really good. But I also feel like this is kind of not a good reason, but I also feel like if that happened, that would have made someone who's not the main character way too interesting. You know what I mean? Because the whole spotlight would have... Because even like at this point, episode 5, he is way more interesting than Jin so far. We don't know much about Jin yet. But like if something like that had happened, it would have just been like, you know, it would have been like Naruto, you know, how it really just became about Sasuke.
Again, that's going back to like one thing I'm really worried about in this series is Mira turning into Sakura, and I feel like this episode added a lot to those fears.
Yeah,
because like compare her episode to Day's episode. Like, if this was like Day's character episode, compare that to like Mira's character episode.
Yeah. So one thing I was thinking was that Mira forgave him pretty easily.
Mhm.
And if this was any other genre, I would have a problem with it. But since this is shonen, I just like, I mean,
Yeah.
technically, I don't know if it's shonen, but
It
it's like
is.
it's like the same vein. Because of that, I just kind of like let it go because realistically, any other character would be mad at least for a little while, or at least like
Mhm.
even if she forgave him after seeing that his friend was like on his deathbed or whatever, right? It's still, I feel like it wouldn't have been that quick, because like he did in fact punch you in an open wound
Yeah.
and send you to the hospital. So also, why are you like, oh, I guess it was the nanomachines that made her better. Oh, I want
Mhm.
to talk about the nanomachines too. Did you have
Mm.
something else to say though? It seemed like you
I
were
was
going to
about
say
to say,
something.
like, honestly, it would have made more sense if they just doubled down the shonen logic and just have her run up to date and then punch him across the room and just be like, okay, we're even now. Let's be best friends again.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, true. Or like, yeah, I mean, now I'm just gonna get into like fan fiction territory saying how things should have gone. But yeah, I agree with that. Okay, so in this episode we find out that the nanomachines are like paywalled in like in like the weirdest type of paywall too, which is
Yeah.
that you have to like be in the God of High School tournament to have access to them. That is so weird. I don't get that at all. What do you think?
It makes sense to me.
Really?
Like, yeah, if you've seen how crappy the pharmaceutical industry is, like the idea of them finding a cure for cancer and like any other disease, there is no single doubt in my mind that it would not be ludicrously more expensive than it would be to produce. Like if those nanomachines costed
Mm,
like $50, if the total cost of the nanomachine treatment, like just objectively speaking, like the literal dollar amount to perform the procedure was $50, it would cost the patient like 500,000 easily. The more you need something, the more they charge you, and cure for cancer is pretty needed. Well, like pretty needed.
I guess that's true, but yeah, it's just funny that the series. I guess that it is pretty realistic in that respect, but it's funny that the series is realistic when it comes to that. When it comes to the
Hmm.
pharmaceutical industry, but like they have like triple kicks and like they're channeling guardian gods in their fights.
So
But
going back to
yeah,
that,
like I think that's
that's
a good point.
going back to that. Like that's where the world building hurts me because they can use this tech for a random fighting tournament, but it isn't like
Yeah,
actively being used in the medical field. That's the thing that kind of drives me crazy. Because, like, I can believe it being, like, super next level expensive, but where, like, a regular person couldn't use it. But I do find it a little, like, eyebrow raising when it's being used for, like, a high school fight tournament. And again, there's probably going to be, like, reasoning behind that, and I don't think that's a straight up plot hole. I feel like I will say that it's a plot hole that I expect to have filled.
yeah, same. I feel the exact same way about it. I feel like there's gonna be some explanation of why that's the case, but it is weird that they're willing to like. I'm assuming this technology is so expensive, and they're willing to just like use it on random high school students who like from like the very beginning too. Not even like people who are actually winning and who had a chance to like who are good, right?
Mm.
It's just from the very beginning in the open arena, everyone had access to nano machines. Anyone could have just jumped in and you know. So actually, never
Can you
mind
imagine
because
if
they
like
did
his
get.
friend had just?
Go ahead.
Can you imagine if his friend had just like joined the tournament? How like I wonder how fast he would have improved. The other thing that kind of also breaks like the immersion for me is I don't understand why they would give it to the losers. Because assuming that this is a company that would like withhold the cure for cancer, who's selfish enough to withhold the cure for cancer for profit, I can't imagine them being generous enough to like give it to the losers.
Oh, I don't assume. I don't. Maybe I was thinking that the company that owns the nano machines is different from the company that runs God of
Mm-hmm.
High School, but maybe they're the same. In fact, it makes sense that they would be the same, considering the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was done. Yeah, that is weird. I don't know why they would do that.
Mm.
um, so also,
But again,
didn't
that
you?
just goes back to like the full. Mm.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna
No, you go
say,
ahead.
didn't you think it was weird, or at the end of episode 4, did you think that Dawei's friend was dead?
I
Because
didn't
I
think
was
he was
sure
dead, but
he
I
was dead.
did.
I was like, he's dead, and that's why. Because I feel like that's another thing that would have been a more interesting route. Is
Mhm.
if I didn't like. I mean, it's not that I didn't like it, but I thought it would be more interesting if, rather than the reason he went so hard on Mira being that he knew if he did that they would treat his friend as early as possible.
Mhm.
I feel
Mhm.
like it would have been more interesting if the reason he went so hard on her was literally just because his friend died and he was mad. Like, it's shitty, but I feel like that would have made him way more interesting as a character, you know?
I disagree with that because him being like in critical condition adds so much more attention to it because he has to, like, when you do that, he doesn't have to win anything. All he has to do is just throw fist. But with that like condition or that like endpoint or that like danger, like that escalating tension or that like threat of loss, it made everything so much better. And I definitely feel like Day isn't the type of character who would just like randomly assault one of his friends or quote unquote friends for that kind of reason. I
Yeah,
feel like if he was that type, he would have just like gone to like some random asshole's house and just beat the living shit out of him.
I uh I think yes, yeah, he's not that type, but I feel like he should have been that type. Pretty much. I feel like they should have made him that type. And as for the
Yeah.
tension thing, you're right. I agree with you. There wouldn't be like nearly as much tension in the fight that he had with Jin if his
Mm-hmm.
friend was already dead. But it would have just
Mm-hmm.
made the previous episode more interesting if like we find out in this episode that he was like not blowing steam, but he was just like, I guess, yeah, maybe it is just blowing steam. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that would have made it more interesting. But also, he's one of the main characters, so he's not going to be super evil in a shonen
Right.
series. um, yeah. What did you think about like the fight scenes itself, like the animation and all
Okay.
that?
So this goes and again, like this last episode I'm bringing up, but the suit like imagine if this was like the first arc of Hunter x Hunter where you cut out all the supernatural stuff and you just focus on the high energy badass kung fu, and then next arc we find out like holy crap, people have magic, they're like doing these next level kind of moves,
Hmm.
and then after that it's like full on kaijus and stuff like that. That would have
Yeah.
been a perfect way to escalate things. But I will say that my biggest, like the only thing I had issue with was Day's Azure, like the first time Day used his like Azure Dragon move.
Hmm.
I don't like that they're already introducing like Ki Blast and like Hadoukens, and that's what that kind of felt like.
Yeah, true.
The other thing I don't like is I feel like there's not enough explanation of what's going on. Like, you know how in like Hunter x Hunter or in JoJo's, they like, make sure you understand what exactly is going on and how each of the moves work?
Hmm.
I would have liked it if they did it in this because again, me being on a super, like, meta, nitpicky kind of way, I wasn't sure, like, I didn't like how I couldn't tell what was, like, what was real and what was, like, metaphorical. Like, did he literally shoot a dragon out of his leg, and that's what destroyed the stadium? Or was it, like, he kicked with so much force that the, like, air pressure destroyed the stadium? Or did he kick the air so hard that it took the shape of a dragon and then caused all the damage?
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing that really bugs me. And that's, like, the number one thing that bugs me about, like, Demon Slayer 2.
So, I think I assumed that it was more of a type of thing where it was like it wasn't like a literal dragon. Like I assumed it was more of a metaphorical thing. But I can definitely see why someone wouldn't assume that, because they already went through the trouble of like introducing like the stands or whatever from like episode 2. So
Right.
then you're just like, then you can't actually tell, like, well, I mean, this is a world where they have stands, so he could literally be shooting dragons out of his foot or whatever. So I didn't assume that. I still don't assume that. I think it was more of a metaphorical thing, but I can definitely see why that would be confusing for anyone. And also, I think part of the reason also why I didn't assume that is because the fighting here is a lot like the fighting, specifically the way Zoro fights in One Piece, which is that like he'll do like a move and he'll have some crazy name, like, I don't know, like a rice ball lion or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And he'll do this attack and you'll just see like slash marks, and then you'll see him on the other side of his opponent and his opponent gets cut up. I feel like this whole fight, my main problem with this fight was that that's what this whole fight pretty much between both Jin and Dewi. I feel like both of them, their attacks were just like, they do something and you don't actually see the attack, which goes into why it's confusing. And then like you just see the result of the attack. There were some parts where they were like actually interacting and punching each other, but for the most part, especially when they did those, you know, quote unquote metaphorical attacks, that's so confusing, because like if they just showed it, then it would make more sense. Like it would be very clear.
The other thing to counter that is the problem with that though is One Piece, the worlds of One Piece and God of High School are very different. So when that kind of thing happens, you're kind of accepting, because I'm guarantee you literally just saw like a skinny kid turn into a rubber meat balloon and machine gun punch someone. So like your suspension of disbelief is like really high, and you accept that that's a normal occurrence in this world. But you don't have that as much as you would. You don't have that as much in this show as you would in One Piece.
I agree with that. Yeah, that's true. Yep. I can definitely see why. I just assumed everything was metaphorical, but I can definitely see why it's confusing. And even now, I'm starting to doubt myself, because like, you're right. Like we've seen all that other stuff that like the higher ups can do, so maybe he was doing something along those lines. But yeah, I think. Oh, there was also another thing I wanted to say about this fight, which is that, just like animation wise, compared to to some of the previous fights, I don't think it was the best really. But I did like the stylization of the fight and like the different. I don't know how to describe it. I don't know what word to describe it, but like the style that the fight was done in was interesting. But animation wise, I don't think it was like that crazy compared to previous. I mean, it's still good, above average, but compared to previous episodes, it's not like, it doesn't stand out to me.
For me, honestly, this is probably my favorite fight so far. The second one would have been like Day versus the prisoner dude. But I thought this one was, like, really nice. Also, frame dropping. They use that really effectively in this. Like, I still need to, like, rewatch Castlevania to make sure that I'm remembering it right. But it feels like they were frame dropping on very long, extended animations, where in this, they frame dropped on very, like, simple, short actions, and that really helped the flow and solidity of the fight.
Yeah. Yeah, to be clear, I liked this fight, and it was my favorite fight too, but I wasn't as impressed with the animation in general, as with the other fights.
You're becoming numb to it, dude.
Yeah,
like
I honestly think that's what it is, because if I go to any other anime, if I load up anything else right now, it's just gonna be like, still shots. So I'm being spoiled.
Think about it. We've had more well-animated fight scenes in these first 5 episodes than like 3 seasons of My Hero Academia.
I don't know about that. I actually don't know about
one
that.
season of.
Because
I'm going to say 2 seasons.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like My Hero had. Oh, if you're talking about animation strictly, then yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Fight wise, though, I would say all the fights in My Hero are top tier, at least from what I've seen.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you have any other thoughts on the episode?
Nope. I'm good.
All right, cool. What would you rate it?
Again, I'd rate the story. Okay, rating the story, I would say 5 to 4. Rating the actual fight, I'd give it a 9. Or 8. Like, if they waited till after the fight to reveal that his friend died, it would be a 9. But I think that narrative choice brings it down to an 8.
Okay, so that's an interesting way to do it. I will hold off on rating the story because I don't want to judge it just yet, because I feel like the storytelling decisions that were made in this episode are going to be, I'm hoping they're going to be better explained. Like, it's going to be clear why it was done this way in future episodes. So I'm going to hold off on that. Fight-wise, I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
Perfect.
And that was actually what I was going to give the whole episode in total, because I wasn't even... Most of the episode really was just the fight. I mean, but...
Yeah.
But yeah. And also, the just one last thing. The backstory with him and his friend, that was sad. That was touching. That was a good, solid backstory, I think. And it was kind of unique, too, because usually it's not like my best friend, who usually... And if someone dies, it's usually like in their past. It's not like happening right now. So... yeah, I give him points for that.
Right. All right. Well, that's been our review of God of High School, episode 5. Tune in next time.
Yep. Thank you, and see you next week.